In today's Nonsense Wars production, we look at the sequel to the 1999 Droid Developer Kit, which we reviewed more than 2 years ago. The 578-part $100 Dark Side Developer Kit came out in 2000 and featured the same not programmable brick built into substantially different, more Imperial-themed models. It also did away with the software component and only shipped with paper instructions. As usual, we start with the box. This set came from one of our childhood collections, and the packaging has corresponding wear and tear. The front shows the main model, the AT-AT, the recommended age, 9+, and some of the contents, including the part count and the microscout. The rear shows more models with their supposed difficulty levels and more descriptions of various things. The 3 instruction manuals correspond to the said difficulty levels: Sith Apprentice, Sith Lord, and Sith Master. Each book has complete instructions for some models and photos for extension elements or alternate builds. They also have some flavor text, and the first volume has a fold-out parts list. Within each book, the models tend to share the same core mechanism, but the DSDK emphasizes modularity less than the DDK. We had the parts stored in a basic partitioned case, which definitely did not come with the set. Since it came out during the transition to studless, it has a mix of studded and studless parts, from the standard Technic beams to the silly early panels. The Dark Side Developer also came out before the transition to bluish gray, and should only contain gray parts. Many of the included gears rarely came in red as well. The microscout remains the same as before. It has different colors, but the same fixed programs. Our particular unit had a flaky button that would not activate until we cleaned both the contact and the contactor, even though the corrosion on the PCB seemed fairly minor. The entire brick comes apart easily with just a few screws, and inside we can see a gearbox enclosure that looks similar to the one found in the Spybotics brick and the geared 9-volt motor. We won't look at all the models, but we will at least look at one model from each book. The first build, the L3GO, uses what they call the Y-frame, a core with a gear reduction and a perpendicular output. This robot drives straight going forward and turns going in reverse, thanks to a simple ratchet that locks one of the rear wheels. This mechanism operates entirely with friction and does not work that well, even with a bit of extra weight modded on. The Vulture droid uses the same core with legs instead of wheels. A very bare subset of the model can already walk on its own, and its behavior doesn't change much in the completed build. It does a bit of a strut due to its long legs, but otherwise behaves as one would expect of this kind of walker. The smooth feet tend to drag a bit on smooth ground, and our build tended to turn while reversing. The destroyer droid has a wheel on its rear leg with a proper ratchet, which gives it a pretty energetic scooting action. A series of cranks and linkages make the arms move back and forth. LEGO suggests using the alarm program to wake it up, or the keep alive program to keep it moving. But both of these programs require shining a lot of light at the sensor inconveniently hidden behind the droid's head. The X walker reverts to a left then right walking mechanism, but with a twist. The legs have wheels and one leg has a ratchet. For whatever reason, this model does not run well at all. The leg with the ratchet does not touch the ground much, and when it does, the ratchet often fails to engage. We tried to fix this problem with a rubber band to little avail. Furthermore, the machine fairly aggressively turns left due to the single ratchet. The instructions suggest many ways to tweak this design, from adjusting the cranks to changing the feet. None of these seem to make a significant improvement to the walker's walking ability, but the fixed feet definitely made it worse. Also, the model always wanted to aggressively turn left, perhaps even more so with all the edits, regardless of the type of feet, and even with ratchets on both feet. Just for fun, we built a proper ratcheting wheeled vehicle, a classic mechanical inchworm. This design has ratchets on the front and back axles, such that the front wheels move when the body expands, and the rear wheels move when the body contracts. This ran surprisingly well and surprisingly fast. Each additional stage of the scissor mechanism gears up the output by increasing the length of each step. Now we finally get to the AT-AT, the flagship model of the DSDK, and the one which uses almost all the parts in the set. The large but sturdy build has double jointed legs and a hinged head. The walking mechanism works surprisingly well. The gait looks pretty convincing, and the model goes relatively straight. The head swings side to side with the natural motion of the body rather than with a dedicated crank. Very impressive overall. The last model we built, the swamp creature, uses the same core as the AT-AT, but all of the fittings have photos instead of instructions, much like the final projects of the droid developer kit. The manual does have some text hints, but we think more views of the various assemblies would help more. Once completed, we get another somewhat less sturdy four-legged walker with a cranked head. And this time the mouth kind of opens and closes as well. Both the AT-AT and the swamp creature use the X frame, which has an interesting quirk. The front and back cranks are offset by not 180 degrees. This asymmetric phasing perhaps helps these walkers move a little more organically, and the instructions have steps specifically for getting it right. Ironically, the DDK extensions that we looked at before don't utilize the cranks at all. Speaking of instructions, this set did have its share of suspect steps, but nothing too crazy. For example, the legs of the L3GO don't get pinned into place. Rather, they get trapped between pins. The lasers on the destroyer droid seat in black pins, but this only works on certain mold variations of said pins. Furthermore, the pins in the AT-AT legs get stressed because the center of the pin passes through the center of a beam. Definitely an illegal technique today. Finally, we tried to reverse engineer a weight shifting walker from Kevin Clagg's LEGO Mindstorms Dark Side Robots, Transports, and Creatures. As we don't actually have the book, we looked at pictures from Brickshelf and his old website. I think we got really close, but we ultimately couldn't figure out the right timing for the weight shifting mechanism. The robot does nonetheless showcase some possibilities beyond the included models. Ultimately, the Darkside developer has models of similar complexity built in similar ways to those in the droid developer, without the hassle of installing and running software. The featured AT-AT works quite well, and while the other builds consist mostly of walkers, the part selection could support more varied or complicated designs. On that note, this is the end of the video. Please consider subscribing if you like what we do, and have a nice day.